I'm going to share with you how to test their Vyper contracts using Foundry. This example is based off of this GitHub repo, which we will visit later. The steps to test your Vyper contract using Foundry is to first install Vyper, and then we'll need to put our Vyper contract in a folder called Vyper contracts. And then we'll need to declare an interface for our Vyper contract inside source. And we also need to copy paste the Vyper deployer contract, which we will copy from this repo. And then we'll write our test and then run the test. Okay, so the first step is to install Vyper. So I'm going to open my terminal and then execute these commands. First, we'll install virtual. This will install Vyper locally inside this folder. So I'll copy this command, paste it here, and then run the next command to initialize a virtual env inside this folder. And then we'll activate the virtual env. Okay, once virtual env is activated, you'll see over here that the terminal looks a little bit different. Here I have parentheses BEM followed by the path of the folder. So this is how you can tell whether virtual env is active or not. Okay, so once virtual env is active, we'll install Vyper into this folder. So we'll install Vyper 0.3.7. Okay, once Vyper is installed, let's check that Vyper is actually installed. So I'll do that by typing Vyper -- version. And we installed 0.3.7, and here the version is 0.3.7. So that's the step of installing Vyper. The next step is to create a folder called Vyper contracts. This will be the folder where we will put our Vyper contract. So inside the file navigator, I'll create a new folder called Vyper contracts. And then inside here, let's put a Vyper contract. Inside here, I'll create a file called Vyper storage.vy, open it, and then paste a simple Vyper contract. All this does is we'll be able to store some value and then get the value. So this is a very simple Vyper contract. Okay, the next step is to declare an interface for our Vyper contract inside source. So open the folder source, and then I'll create the file called ivyperstorage.sol. Declare some headers and the interface ivyperstorage. And inside here, we'll declare the functions that are declared inside the Vyper contract. I'm going to split the code editor into two parts. On the right, I'll display the Vyper contract, and on the left, I'll display the interface. Okay, so let's declare the interface. The functions that we're going to declare is store and get. So I'll say function store. It will take in a uint. So uint 256, and this will be external. And the function get external. Actually, let's make this get function into a view function. So I'll declare it as view. And then inside the interface, external view returns uint. And that completes the interface. Let's try compiling the interface. I'm going to open the terminal and then type forge build. And our contract compiles, so there was no compilation error inside our interface. Okay, step 3. Step 3 is to copy and paste Vyper deployer.sol. This contract, I'm going to get it from this repo. From the GitHub user 0xkitsune and the repo Foundry Vyper, I'm looking for a file under lib utils Vyper deployer. I'll copy all of this code, and we'll use this code to deploy our Vyper contract inside our Foundry tests. So copy this file and then head back over to my code editor. Back inside my code editor, I'm gonna paste the code inside lib utils Vyper deployer.sol. So open the file navigator, and inside lib, create a new folder called utils. And inside utils, I'm gonna create a contract, a Solidity contract called Vyper deployer.sol. And then paste the code that we just copied over. What is the next step? Going back to the README, the next step is to write our test. So inside the test, I'll create a new file called vyper.t.sol. And then I wrote some boilerplate code. First, I'm going to import the Vyper deployer contract that we just copied, and also the Vyper interface that we've declared. The next step is to write some code inside the setup. So what we're going to do is we're going to deploy the Vyper deployer contract. Here I'll type Vyper deployer. I'll name it Vyper deployer. This is equal to new Vyper deployer. And also declare an interface for our Vyper contract. Vyper storage. I'll name it by storage. This is the simple contract that we're going to be testing. And inside the setup, we'll deploy the Vyper storage contract. Say by storage is equal to. The way we're going to deploy this contract is by using Vyper deployer. So I'll type Vyper deployer dot. What is the function that we need to call to deploy our Vyper contract? Going to the Vyper deployer contract, there are several functions inside here. But the function that we're going to use to deploy our contract is deploy contract. And for the inputs, we'll pass in the name of the file and the constructor arguments, which is encoded as bytes. So inside here, to deploy our Vyper storage contract, you'll say deploy contract. The name of the file is Vyper storage. And for the input, for the constructor input, going back to our Vyper contract, we initialize this contract with a constructor argument of uint256. So inside here, let's say we'll send the value 1, 2, 3, 4, and we'll need to ABI encode this, ABI encode. Calling this function will deploy the contract and it's going to return an address. So we'll have to wrap this in an interface, Vyper storage. And that's how we will deploy a Vyper contract inside our Foundry test. Let's write a simple test. So for example, function test get public, and then say uint256 val is equal to by storage dot get, and let's assert equal that the val, the value that was returned, is equal to the value that we set inside the constructor, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. Say 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's write another test. Let's write a test for the function set. Function test store public, and let's say by storage dot store. For this test, let's try fuzzing the by storage. So we'll pass in an input uint256 val. And just a reminder that when we write our test in Foundry, and for our test, when we specify some inputs, then this will tell Foundry that we're fuzzing this test, which means that Foundry will provide some random inputs and then call this test multiple times. So the value val will be a random input provided by Foundry. Say val, and then say assert equal by storage dot get should be equal to val. Now when Foundry does a fuzzing test, it's going to try to fuzz all of the contract, including the Vyper deployer contract. But we only want to fuzz the by storage. So inside here, we'll need to tell Foundry to only fuzz by storage. To do that, we'll say target contract address of by storage. And that completes our test. Let's now try running the test. So I'll open my terminal, clear the logs. I'll expand the terminal, and then we'll run the test by typing forge test -- match path test vyper.t.sol. And now, since Vyper deployer is going to need access to our file system, this means that we need to run this test with --ffi. This means that we're allowing Foundry to have access to our file system, and then execute the test. And our test passes. So the test to get passed, and also notice that test store, it run a fuzzing test on our Vyper contract. So in this video, I showed you how to test your Vyper contract using Foundry. And the important thing to remember here is that when you want to fuzz your Vyper contract, you'll have to specify the target contract to the Vyper contract, else it will also test the Vyper deployer contract, which we don't want to.